Hi guys, it's Mr. Stevens here, back again to jump right back into Brothers in Arms, the lives and experiences of the men who fought the Civil War in their own words by William C. Davis. We are going to jump right back in where we left off. And I hope you guys are still enjoying it. I know that I am. And away we go. There were 300 or 400 people on board, and probably 2/3 of them were boys of 16 to 18 years. The wages of a first-class boy were $8 per month. Alva Hunter, USS Nahant. There was quite a mixture of men aboard the ships, and significantly, sometime before they were allowed to wear the uniform of Union infantrymen, blacks donned the bell-bottom trousers of Yankee seamen. In September of 1861, they began to enlist and were given pay equal to white sailors. They served in most of the same capacities as the enlisted grades, acting as cooks, topmen, gun crews, and more, though none rose to officer ranks. In the Confederacy, by contrast, no blacks were officially enlisted, though many served as cooks and servants, and a few even informally helped work the guns when there was need. Beyond this native-born minority, thousands of foreigners served in the navies, especially in the North. Most were North Europeans who came from a seafaring background in Norway, Sweden, or other such countries. Sometimes almost half a ship's complement of crew were foreign-born. In the Confederacy, however, most sailors were native-born, with little nautical experience behind them thanks to the absence of a maritime tradition in the South. Blacks served as enlisted ranks in the Union Navy almost from the outset of the war, and though they could not rise to become officers, still they received a new degree of respect in uniform. Handguns were a prominent fixture aboard ship, from the officer's Lamont revolver at left with its separate shotgun barrel beneath the main barrel, to the model 1861 Navy signal pistol at right. The crew of a Commodore-class gunboat, converted from a ferry boat, pose at leisure, listening to the banjo, playing games, whittling sticks. Several of them are black, and more are immigrants. A Star 1858 Navy revolver, this .36 caliber weapon was made for naval use and was probably privately purchased by a Union officer. We are being furnished with every possible instrument of destruction which it is supposed can be of service to U.S. Shot, shell, shrapnel, hand grenades, and wrought iron shot. We have gained a reputation we do not aim to lose. William Keeler, USS Monitor. The experience of combat for a sailor differed radically from what was encountered by a land soldier. For one thing, many a seaman never actually saw battle, or at best only watched while his ship threw a few shots at a fleeting blockade runner. Most Union ships never came under fire, and most Confederate vessels saw action no more than once or twice before capture or destruction. But when the seaman did hear the sound of guns, he could feel dreadfully alone, standing on a deck with only a dozen others of his gun crew beside him, not like the infantrymen lost in the line of thousands. On the other hand, if he served an ironclad, then he fought his battle within the iron bowels of the ship, blistering hot, grimy from gun smoke, barely able to see his comrades and unaware of what was happening outside the gun's port, deafened by the din of his gun and the sound of the foe's shot hitting his vessel. Sailors in light cotton duck trousers posed beside a small deck cannon, beside the walking beam of their gunboat's steam engine. A Dahlgren 12-pounder boat howitzer, one of the standard deck guns in use aboard lighter Union gunboats. A collection of naval buttons worn on Confederate uniforms, some of imported English brass manufacture and others of hard rubber for enlisted men. The gun turret of this mighty ironclad monitor with some of her officers looking on. She introduced whole new designs into naval architecture and made history in her duel with the CSS Virginia. The dents made by Confederate round shot can clearly be seen on the turret. Encouraged by the good weather, the men got out their ditty bags and boxes, bought blue cloth or flannel, sewing silk, etc. of the purser, and employed their spare hours in cutting and making shirts and trousers. Alva Hunter, USS Nahant. The burden of boredom was probably greater for the sailor than his counterpart in the armies, thanks to his isolation aboard ship or at sea. The sailor's life was an unbroken routine in which one day was no different than the next. Shore leave came with painful infrequency, both because of ships being at sea for long periods and also for fear of desertion when in port. Many turned to drink or found other amusements as they could, or made their own. Gambling proved popular, despite being against regulations, and everyone played the traditional seaman's version of backgammon or acey-deucey. In the evenings, the musical instruments came out, the old salts told their exaggerated stories, men boxed or ran foot races on deck, and a few ships even formed theatrical troupes. Now and then, on the hot days, the captain ordered hoses hooked to the ship's pumps, and the men doused themselves playfully to relieve the heat. In the quieter moments, they worked at some small craft, making ropework belts, carving pipes from soapstone, or etching the age-old scrimshaw into bone. For them, the idle pastimes of the sea had not changed in hundreds of years. Items seen aboard every Union warship included the national flag, a variety of cutlasses, an 1842 model Navy pistol, a load of grape shot, and even, for a fortunate few, the naval model of the new Medal of Honor. To fight the boredom of shipboard life, sailors turned to music and games, often forming informal ensembles like this one for the entertainment of their shipmates. A gun crew serves one of the mighty deck guns of the river gunboat, their brooding presence a constant reminder that the naval war was always serious business. Chapter 6. Prisoners of War. At the beginning of the war, no one anticipated the demands that prisoners of war would make north and south. The Union at first sent captured rebels to old masonry fortresses, state prisons, and even open-air camps, until the demands became so great that special prisons had to be built. By war's end, those camps stretched all across the northern tier of Yankee states, from Elmira, New York to Rock Island, Illinois, and with places in between like Camp Chase, Johnson's Island, and a score of others. Men from warm climates like the Confederates were not prepared for the freezing winters in the camps. They received food and blankets and fuel, but often not enough, as a parsimonious Washington tried to save money, and later cut back their supplies in retaliation for treatment of Yankee prisoners in the South. No one understood the needs for sanitation, of course. The result was an appalling rate of disease and death. More than 214,000 Confederates fell into Yankee hands and went to prison camps, and at least 25,976 of them never went home again. Will no one send a little word to cheer us in our gloomy hours of activity? O God, how dreadful are these bitter feelings of hope deferred. Thus we linger, thus we drag the slow, tedious hours of prison life. Unknown North Carolina Confederate. Even generals were captured and imprisoned, sometimes. At top is the forage cap of Confederate General Simon Bolivar Buckner, captured at Fort Donelson, Tennessee, and briefly held prisoner. Beneath is the slouch hat of a Confederate lieutenant. A group of captured Confederates posed for the camera at Camp Douglas outside Chicago, revealing the infinite variety of their attire. One of the greatest enemies of the prisoner of war was overcrowding. These wooden barracks in a Union prison camp are almost luxurious compared to conditions at some camps, but still, disease ran rampant through the compounds. More of the variety of headgear found among the Confederates in prison and out, from the forage cap of General George W. Randolph above to a common cap worn by an artilleryman. The lexicographers of our language have not yet invented the words of proper strength to express condemnation of the studied inhumanities of Andersonville. William C. Walker, 18th Connecticut Infantry. As bad as things were in the northern camps, the Yankees captured and sent south suffered even more. Heat, mosquitoes, and shortages in the Confederacy, hard-pressed to feed its own soldier, conspired to make southern camps a vision of despair, and of Camp Sumter near Andersonville, Georgia, the incarnation of a millennia of men's speculations on the face of hell. The camp's only water came from a polluted stream. Its stockade enclosed a mere 26 acres, 10 hectares, and surrounded over 30,000 men at its height. The stories of appalling suffering that emerged from that one prison are among the most heart-rending of the war. Many survivors exaggerated, even invented stories of horror, but the truth was horrific enough. Of the 194,000 Yankees sent to southern prisons, over 30,000 died, and more than a third of those perished, sometimes at a rate of 139 a day at Andersonville. The prison actually operated for barely a year, but so impressed itself on the minds of its inmates and the Union that someone had to pay, even if his guilt could be questioned. The noose fell around Major Henry Wirz, Camp Sumter's commander, the only Confederate to be executed for war crimes after the surrenders of 1865. 2 fabric-covered tin drum canteens used by Confederates. Men captured took their canteens with them to prison if they could. A broadside proclaiming the rules and regulations to be observed in Confederate military prisons, signed by the Commandant of Richmond's infamous Libby Prison, Thomas P. Turner. A photograph of hell. The interior of Camp Sumter at Andersonville, Georgia in 1864, when overcrowding, disease, and death were at their height. Now we will stop there for the day. I hope you guys are still enjoying the book Brothers in Arms, The Lives and Experiences of the Men Who Fought the Civil War in Their Own Words, by William C. Davis. I know that I am, and we will be back with another part very soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.